Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today. Quick housekeeping. If you have any questions during today's session, please pop them in the Q&A box and we'll answer as many as we can at the end if we have time. Everyone here today will receive the webinar recording, and you'll also receive exclusive resources created especially for today's webinar attendees, including SATs diagnostic questions and answers, complete with a RAG style analysis, and you'll also receive the first 3 lessons from our SATs Booster program. We'll share the links to these resources at the end. We'll also mention some of our most popular free resources along the way, and you can download these yourself with a free Third Space Learning Maths Hub account. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Third Space Learning, we provide one-to-one AI maths tutoring for schools, and along with delivering thousands of one-to-one Year 6 maths sessions, we've analysed every SATs paper over the past 8 years. That combined experience has helped us to pinpoint the top 20 SATs topics that deliver the highest mark potential. These topics shape our own SATs Booster program, and when taught well and sequenced strategically, they give pupils the strongest foundation for SATs success. So in the next 30 minutes, we'll cover which Key Stage 2 maths topics appear most frequently in the SATs papers, which offer the highest mark potential, and how these shape the top 20 SATs revision topics. And we'll also cover how you can structure your revision lessons to deliver impact while reducing cognitive load and building pupil confidence, all without adding to your workload. So before we start, let's introduce ourselves. I'm Charlotte, and before joining Third Space Learning, I was a primary school teacher for 6 years, mostly in Year 6. And I'm now the content editor here, and my main role is to keep our content up to date and aligned with the latest pedagogy. Joining me today is Terry, our primary curriculum lead.
Hi everyone, I'm Terry. Along with my team, I write and review all of the primary lessons and the programs that our AI Tutor Sky delivers to our pupils. Before working at Third Space, I was also primary school teacher for around 10 years, and again worked mainly in Year 6.
So to start us off today, Terry is going to walk us through how Key Stage 2 content typically appears in the SATs papers and what that means for planning focused, high-impact revision.
Sure. If we just have a look at this graph here, what we see generally year on year is that Year 6 content is always going to make up the majority of the paper. That's consistent every single year. The only change that you can see there is in 2022, which were the SATs papers that were delivered straight after COVID. So obviously pupils had gaps. And then in 2024, you see there quite a sharp increase again in the Year 6 coverage, which was when it was assumed that those gaps were kind of closed. So I think what we can kind of take from that data is that it is really important to focus on making sure that when you start your revision plan, that those Year 6 concepts are covered, because they do get the most coverage on the papers. But I think the thing to think about is that in order for them to really be secure with the Year 6 concepts and be able to grasp them properly, it's really important that they have those lower year concepts, like in Year 3 and 4, that they really have those secure. Just trying to teach, obviously, like Year 6 concept in isolation isn't going to necessarily give them the best chance of being able to fully understand it. So I think it's just worth, when you are thinking about your revision, making sure that it's balanced into a sequence that allows them to grasp and understand. And that links also to how the papers are physically structured. So the reasoning papers will always start with Year 3 and 4 content. They get progressively harder with that really tricky kind of like Year 6 content towards the back of the paper. And when I was teaching in particular, a lot of the kind of like focus pupils that I worked with were those ones that were right on the cusp of expected. They'd be getting kind of like 98, 99 and needed that boost into getting 100. And the reality for those pupils is that, they are always going to find the reasoning paper tricky. And the likelihood is that they weren't going to necessarily complete the whole paper because they were finding it hard. So sort of in their best chance of kind of like maximizing those marks is to really nail those first 10 to 12 questions in the paper, because that's where they're more likely to pick up their marks, which is why it is super important that the year 3, 4, and 5 content is really secure, even though it doesn't get quite as much coverage as year 6.
Yeah, absolutely. And like when I was teaching as well, I'd also want that group of pupils that you're talking about to focus on the content domains where they could pick up the most marks the most easily as well. Can you tell us a bit more about which content domains contribute to the most mark potential?
Yeah, definitely. So what we can see on this next slide, this table, this is what test developers use when they're literally like making the questions for the tests. So when they are developing the questions, they're literally told this percentage of the marks needs to come from that first strand being number, ratio, and algebra, and then that second strand being measurement, geometry, and statistics. And I think so each year that's going to be consistent. The papers will always look like that. And I don't think there's necessarily any surprises there for teachers. You'll probably be able to guess, yeah, well, I would have expected number to be get high coverage. I would expect calculations to get high coverage. But for me, when I first looked at the table, what was surprising was actually the how high that percentage was. With 75 to 85% of the marks coming from the areas in that first strand. Whereas in comparison, only 15 to 25% are going to come from measurement, geometry, and statistics areas. And I think if you kind of like put that into perspective in terms of marks for pupils, depending on thresholds, each year pupils need to get between 50 to 55% to get expected. So what you can take from that is if you only covered the areas in that first strand and they got most of those questions right, and you didn't even touch the areas that were in the second strand, they could still pass with just those areas. So I think when you're trying to figure out how to prioritize your revision, those are definitely going to be those kind of like really high priority areas. And then another thing worth noting in a kind of like similar vein is that the reasoning papers and the arithmetic, you're guaranteed to get at least one question on those areas in that first strand, multiple, more likely. But with measurement, geometry, and statistics, it's kind of more of a mystery actually what's actually going to come up. So some years there hasn't been anything on 3D shapes, some years there hasn't been anything on area. And so it's really kind of like ideally, you'd get full curriculum coverage. Of course, that's what we want. But obviously, time gets tight when you're revising for SATs. And when you're trying to think, what do I really need to focus on? It's worth kind of just considering how much of my potentially quite tight revision time do I want to spend working on topics that may not even come up, and if they do, aren't going to get, very many marks associated with them, compared to how much time should I be spending on these really high priority areas that are definitely going to be there where the guaranteed marks are.
Yeah, just on that point of revision time being tight, actually in our annual SAT survey that we send out, a lot of teachers do tell us that either they don't have time for revision or they just about have time for revision. So, with revision time being tight and bearing in mind that 75 to 85% of the marks come from number, ratio, and algebra, and if we look at this pie chart as well from the 2025 SATs, we can see that actually 34% of questions came from calculation, and we know that previous years follow a similar pattern. How can teachers with time for SATs revision use this to guide them?
Yeah, so calculations is such a significant area to focus on for SATs revision because not only, as we can see, does it make up so much of the paper, but it's just these fundamental skills that are needed across so many other questions. So you'll get questions that aren't, their first topic naturally isn't calculations, but pupils need the calculation skills to be able to answer it. And so I think what would be useful is just to mention the arithmetic paper here, because it has just such a predictable formula each year. So you can see there from that table just how predictable this is. It's literally, the same each year with slightly different questions, so different numbers. You're always going to get long multiplication for 2 marks, always going to get long division for 2 marks. There's going to be multiplying by 10 and 100. All of those things are going to be there with just slightly differing numbers. So with those children that really need to push for expected. The reasoning paper, as we know, is just much more unpredictable. What's going to come up, we don't fully know. It's harder. You're going to have to apply the skills to lots of different contexts. But the arithmetic paper is such a good chance for those children to really maximize marks here because we can literally teach the effective methods that they need for answering these questions that they can easily apply and they can easily be getting, you could be getting 40 out of 40 on this paper, which leaves them a bit of breathing room, I think, then for the reasoning, which is going to be harder for them. But if they can really nail that arithmetic, they don't need to pick up quite so many marks in the reasoning paper. So it's really important that time is set aside to make sure that those fluency and arithmetic skills are secure.
And just while we are talking about the structure of the papers, for anyone looking for some free SATs practice papers, we do have a set of 6 practice papers available, and we'll make sure that the link to those is available at the end for you. But thinking about making time for fluency, I believe that that is actually one of the key principles behind how we structured the top 20 topics. Is that right?
Yeah, it is. So these are our kind of like top 20 areas that we've come up with. Those of you that already use Sky for your tutoring support or are familiar will recognize these as the basis of our SATs revision program. And so we split the areas into kind of like two kind of topics. We have fluency, which is your arithmetic style questions, and reasoning, which is the questions that you would see on the reasoning paper. In these, there's 100% going to be at least one question that's going to come up on all of these areas, and most of them you're going to get multiple. So they really are like a really good starting point for where to really hit that revision. And when we're making this order, we use kind of like two main principles to make the selection. The first one is trying to get a good balance of coverage and coherence. And so what I mean by that is if you just go purely on mark allocation, content coverage, you would end up with an area like solving problems with mixed operations at number one, because by mark allocation, that's going to be big because all of those questions are going to be 2, sometimes 3 marks, and you're going to get multiple questions. So if you're going just by that, you'd put it at number one. But when you think about a coherent teaching sequence, it doesn't really make sense for that to be up at number one, because in order for pupils to be able to answer those kinds of questions, they need to be able to do all of these lessons on here that you can see are coming before it. They need to be able to, they need to be fluent with addition and subtraction. They need to be fluent with multiplication, division. They need to have some familiarity with like the multiplication, division reasoning questions before they just kind of go in with this mixed operation area. So one thing that we really did try to consider is making sure that whilst we have all the high coverage and mark allocation areas in there, that they're in a sequence that makes sense for building understanding. And then the second principle is what you're talking about, Charlotte, which is trying to balance fluency and reasoning. And I think it can be sort of like sometimes an assumption that's just like they should already be fluent. We teach these like written methods and stuff like that in lower years. So I'm not going to spend time doing that. But actually the reality is that a lot of pupils, they don't always have that fluency that we'd expect, or they don't have efficient fluency methods. So they might be able to default to written methods for every single question, but they don't have other kind of like effective strategies. So what you'll see in our order there is we always put the kind of like fluency area just before the reasoning lessons that are attached to it or depend on it, basically. So the example there is we identify fluency with addition and subtraction as the number one area, really making sure that pupils are secure with addition and subtraction, all different types of methods. And they can then apply that skill to the reasoning questions that involve addition and subtraction, and also money questions, which also very frequently require addition and subtraction. So it's really sort of you need those fluency arithmetic skills to be able to apply to the reasoning. So building that into the revision is really important.
Yeah, I mean, these top 20 topics are they're a great starting point for prioritizing stats revision, and it's really helpful to see them split into fluency and reasoning, and that way you can make sure that you're clearly focusing on both skills. As they sound at the minute, these kind of 20 topics, they feel quite broad. For example, reasoning with addition and subtraction, there are so many different like question types and methods that could fall under that category. What can teachers do to break this revision down even further?
Yeah, so that is why this year we've actually broken those 20 topics down into sort of like 60 mini topics or lessons. And each one of those um, isolates one specific skill under that broader kind of like umbrella topic, which means that pupils aren't having to kind of like juggle multiple methods at once, basically, in one lesson. And I think this is really useful to consider when you start to make your initial revision plan and figure out how the lessons are going to look. Because when I was teaching year six and I would start my SATs revision, I think my go-to method was I want to familiarize them with the SATs questions. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to find every question I can find on addition and subtraction. Whether that's arithmetic, whether it's reasoning, I'm going to find it and group them all together and I'm going to show them all these questions and work through them together. I'm going to do the same with multiplication division. So all these questions under these super broad topics, which is what we saw on those top 20 slides. But I think what's actually useful to think about is that those topics and those questions are also different in nature. They all require different approaches, different skills. So what can be more beneficial to help pupils to really kind of like grasp and be able to apply what we try to give them in our stats revision is to try and group them further into more of a specific skill under the kind of like broader umbrella. So what you can see, I'll give you an example so we can look at our first 12 there in a bit more detail. Our first lesson, you can still see that our first three lessons are developing fluency with addition and subtraction, but there are three different types of skill that are isolated there across the first three lessons. So we have fluency with addition and subtraction, and lesson one focuses on questions that would involve using rounding and adjusting to really get them to focus on that method and recognize when questions require it. Lesson two focuses on a method of counting on to find the difference. And then lesson three, questions that require them to use the inverse. And I think that that is kind of much more helpful so that these skills are kind of in one shorter, more focused lesson so that pupils don't kind of just feel like they're just going from one thing to another thing to another thing and nothing's really kind of like going in. And that approach that we've taken this year has come from watching our own pupils in sessions. We kind of just noticed there was a little bit of frustration with the length of those broader lessons. They were kind of like doing a session and then that would finish and they'd come back the next time and the same lesson was still there. They were still doing this addition and subtraction fluency lesson. And they were just kind of, I think, showing frustration that this lesson just felt never ending. And they were kind of like feeling a little bit demotivated that they weren't actually making any progress through this program. It was just the same thing over and over again. And so the decision to split them like this just helps the lessons to feel, I think, more achievable and help them to actually properly grasp the concept and they feel the progress that they're making through the program rather than it just kind of going on and on.
Yeah, and I think that also breaking the concepts down further like this is also a really good way to just kind of like reduce that cognitive load for pupils. And I know when I was teaching, there's like a range of techniques that I would try and use to reduce that cognitive load. But for stats revision like this, beyond breaking down the concepts, are there any other methods that you've used when preparing these stats lessons that Sky uses? And how can teachers build this into their own revision lessons as well?
Yeah, so I think there's quite a lot of things we can do that are quite easy, to be honest. So the first thing, obviously, is when people start their SATs revision, they're going to come with all different methods that they want to use to approach a SATs question, and that is fine if the methods that they have and they want to use are reliable. and they're going to be effective and lead them to the right answer like most of the time. I think where it becomes a bit problematic is when they don't really have an effective method, and instead they're trying to like piece together different types of approaches and different bits from different methods and trying to figure out which one they need to use. And so what we try to do in our lessons is we try to, where the questions have come up that are showing there's like gaps that need support, we try to focus on like a single most effective method that we think the pupils are going to have the most success with and are going to be able to apply to their own questions, rather than sort of going down this route of here's all the different ways that you could answer this question. The kind of this like kind of like single method that we try to encourage, like a single approach, just helps them to kind of like really understand what they're doing and why they're doing it like that, instead of just flitting around between different approaches. And the other thing, it's quite simple. As teachers do it quite a lot, like when you're using PowerPoints and you have the animations and things coming in. But we really try to be careful about the redundancy effect and making sure that what's on the screen at any time is relevant for them at that particular moment, rather than having like everything on the screen and they're having to work through. Because what can happen is, people are looking at the different things that are on the screen, they're jumping ahead and they haven't finished that bit. So what we do to try and kind of like manage that is we just use blurring. So we kind of like gradually unblur the bits of the information as they become relevant to the question, rather than having everything straight away. And then kind of moving away from what's on the physical screen, the actual way that we structure the lesson, we try to make them, they'll all follow the same structure. It's a predictable structure. Every lesson follows the same, which just helps reduce that load of kind of like pupils thinking, I wonder what I'm going to have to do in this lesson today. Am I going to be doing the same as what I did yesterday, or am I going to be a different type of revision lesson? Just so that they know what they're coming into, and they're not having to work out a new structure. They can literally just focus in on whatever maths they need to do.
Based on the information you've just given us, I have two questions here. One, what pattern do these like predictable lessons follow? And then secondly, like how can teachers replicate this revision lesson structure themselves without it taking hours for them to plan?
Yeah, so I can show you like the structure that we use in our lessons. So you can see here, we start every lesson with a skill check-in question, which is basically that is to be answered independently with no kind of teacher input. And what that gives is kind of like a starting point, so that it shows you how much support that pupil is going to need, how fast they're going to be able to move through this particular topic. If they then get that wrong, you can kind of, it's an indication that perhaps they aren't too familiar with it, so they're going to need some support. So we then try to break that question down, so showing them exactly what they should have done to answer the question, explore the concepts and the skills involved, and hopefully kind of make them feel a bit more confident with that type of question. And then on the next slide, give them opportunities to practice some similar questions with kind of like just limited support, but basically just to check that following that kind of like scaffolded slide that was really kind of like breaking the question down, are they now confident with this, or do I still need to carry on? Are they still like not sure? And then we end every lesson with a skill checkout, which basically is like your end point of the lesson that you can compare to your skill check-in. Again, it's just done independently and allows you to kind of see where pupils are now that they finished the topic. And what this structure also offers is a kind of a different way that you can work through it, in that if they get the skill checking question correct, you can kind of assume, okay, maybe I don't need to spend kind of like too long on this area. And pupils can maybe then skip to just having a couple more examples that they can do with, very limited support, just to check it wasn't a fluke at the start, and then they can apply it to different questions. And then they do their checkout and finish. And what that kind of allows is just pupils to move at a pace that they are more comfortable with. So you haven't got pupils kind of like having to do things and take ages when they really understand it, which is another thing we notice, like pupils, when they were being made to go through this scaffolded slide, they were like, oh, I know the answer, like I'm ready to move on. But also you haven't got pupils moving through and they're not ready. So that just helps you to kind of like balance that out.
Yeah, it sounds like even though we've got like a solid structure here, that being adaptive in your teaching is quite a big part of this. And we know that that's like key for pupil progress, but we also know that in a class of 30, it can be really tricky to adapt to the pace for every pupil in real time. For many schools, that's one of the reasons that they use our AI tutor. The one-to-one nature means that the pace adjusts to each pupil automatically. But for teachers who are delivering these lessons to a whole class, what are some practical ways that they can adapt these revision lessons in real time?
Yes, it's always going to be tricky with a full class, but I think the key is just trying to make sure that those different pathways and what the outcomes are going to be for how pupils move through it is planned in advance, and you know exactly what's going to happen in each situation. So if you notice that you've got some pupils that answer that skill check-in, and they're fine, they've needed absolutely no support, they're really confident, having like challenge questions or just more questions that they can just work through on their own. Um, and that then frees you up to work with pupils that have found it trickier and need more scaffolding before they move to independent practice. And then similarly, if you use the skill check-in and you've got the whole class is like, well, they're all struggling with this, then you know that in your revision plan, there needs to be some more time spent on kind of like modeling. They need more examples before they move to independent practice. And then the other kind of part of this is, I think, it's also worth checking pupil confidence, even when the work kind of like seems fine. Sometimes, pupils will get answers right, but for whatever reason, they still don't feel confident. And I think it's worth looking at why they're feeling that way. So in our lessons, we're now giving pupils a chance to say how confident they feel with the lesson they've just done in comparison to how they felt at the start. And so it gives us the opportunity then if if pupil sentiment's low, like a lot of them are saying, I feel less confident, then we know that something isn't landing right because they're saying, I don't understand, even though they got it right, which kind of flags up. Are they going to be able to do this then in their paper? And so it's worth looking at why they've reported feeling that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Interestingly, we actually recently sent a survey to schools about their maths interventions, and you can see here that 52% of schools told us that they monitor progress through pupil confidence checks, like using traffic light cards, thumbs up, thumbs down. This is quite subjective though. So when you're trying to get through these SATs revision lessons and monitor progress, like what do you think is a more objective way to track how pupils are doing and progressing?
Yeah, so that bit is quite subjective. And I think if you want to look at kind of a more objective method, I think, something like these skill check-ins and checkouts are really kind of like your concrete evidence of whether pupils are actually secure on that objective. You're not just having to kind of like guess based on kind of like how you feel it went. It offers you kind of clear data on whether they could do it at the start, whether they could do it at the end. And what you can see there is just an example of like what the teachers, so pupils that are on our one-to-one, this is the report that the teachers will get. And you can see then just how you can track it from session to session and how this skill checking and skill checkout offers a really easy way to do that. So it's two different kind of lessons. You've got the first one, both check in and check out was correct. So that is an assumption that they're fine with this now. I can move on and spend time on some other, more areas that need more support. And then you've got, the second one, you see the check-in not right, but the checkout correct. So that's clear evidence then that they've made progress. So their scaffolding and the breaking down of the question has led them to be able to answer the skill checkout. And I think that kind of like session to session tracking is really useful for helping you to make quick decisions about your revision plan, and tells you basically, do I need to do more work on this? Am I ready to move to the next one, or do I need to do another day on this? Rather than sort of like waiting till you finish and then giving like a SATs paper to see and then noticing there are still gaps. This allows you to kind of like make those decisions in a more timely manner.
Yeah, I think this really helps you to see that people progress really clearly, sorry, and it's something that teachers can easily replicate in the classroom as well, or kind of in the style of a RAG analysis. Okay, so before we wrap up, Terry, are there any SATs strategies that teachers should be explicitly modeling during revision sessions to help pupils pick up as many marks as possible?
Yeah, definitely. So we have kind of like two strategies that we encourage in our two types of lessons. So we have our two, like our fluency lessons and our reasoning lessons. So these ones that you can see here are the ones that we would encourage for the questions in the reasoning paper. So you have things like, isolating keywords in the questions, identifying operations, remembering to include units, checking answers, looking for marks. These are all things that you'd sort of really expect that pupils are just going to do without you telling them to. But unfortunately, they don't always do it as much as you'd like. And obviously, when you're administering the SATs papers, it can be quite difficult. And I remember walking around and thinking, "Oh, if they'd have just like checked their answer, or if they just, read that question properly, that answer could have been different in the box." So I think it's really important to really give time to like model it and remind them, have you checked your answers? Have you checked the marks? And just on those, a couple of points I'll just quickly share from marking the SATs maths papers for a few years as well, just kind of some really general observations. These are kind of all outlined in the general marking principles that you can see in the mark schemes that are all available. But when I was teaching, I don't think I ever read them. But there is some really useful information in there. So, for example, looking at like this marks one, and when people see the 2 marks and the working out space, they know, there's a method mark here. But what you tend to see in the papers is that I don't think pupils always know actually what they have to put down to get the method mark. And the answer to that is literally everything. So if there are just kind of like numbers written around the page, and you could assume as a marker and be like, oh, well, I think what they've done is they've done the right operation, but they've got an error and that's why they've ended up with the wrong answer. But actually, the method mark can't be awarded unless every single calculation that they've done is shown so that we can see, yes, they knew exactly the process they were following and they just made some arithmetic errors. They can't just kind of write random numbers and hope that a marker's going to assume that they did the right thing to get there. So it's really important that it's like just remind them, even if they think they can do it all in their head, if there's a method mark available, write everything down, so that the marker will kind of like look for it. And then, with the checking answers, you kind of say to them all the time, just give yourself time to check back through your paper. They don't really know what they're checking for. And it's things like mistranscriptions, which is such a shame when you're marking the papers and like they'll have reached a correct answer in the working, haven't copied it across correctly into the final answer box. So things like that could have just been caught if they checked it through, misreading numbers from the question. So 841, but they've misread 814. Can't always allow marks for that. So it's just really small things like that. It can really make a difference. And then on the next kind of like set of strategies we have are the ones we have in our fluency lessons, which focus not so much on like the test taking strategies, but more on methods. So, pupils will default quite a lot of them to a written method, even when it's not the most effective. So we try to encourage these kind of different methods based on type of question. So, for particular addition questions, we want them to try and use rounding and adjusting rather than writing out a column method and wasting time. When they're calculating with fractions, we want to encourage them to find the lowest common denominator because that will make the overall calculation simpler. So we try to focus on those to just really help them kind of be efficient in the 30 minutes that they get to work through that paper.
Those are some really good tips. And I think that we have all felt the frustration of trying to get pupils to show they're working correctly or use the most efficient method. You can actually download all of these SATs strategies as a poster. There was a QR code on the slide before, and there'll be another one again at the end. So, Terry, thank
Yeah,
you for. Oh, sorry.
and just to mention those free SATs papers earlier, pupils can use those to practice those strategies, maybe give them a chance to be the marker, look for marks, decide if they are or aren't going to give it, and explain why. So I think those are really good kind of starting point for that.
Yeah, absolutely. We actually have some SATs worked examples as well in our Maths Hub that you can download and use for that exact purpose. So thank you for walking us through the top priority revision topics today. We hope that you found today's session helpful. As ever, each cohort is unique, so you might want to adjust the order of these top priority topics to suit your pupils. And we know as well that everyone's revision will start at a different point. So something to help you decide when to start or what order to do these lessons in is the SATs diagnostic assessment and RAG analysis that we've created based on these top 20 topics. And then you can also use the first 3 lessons from our SATs Booster program to kickstart your SATs revision planning as well. You can either use the QR code here to access the resources now, or you will get a link in a follow-up email sent to you after this webinar along with the recording. If you don't have one already, you can create a free Maths Hub account for access to hundreds of more maths resources, including those that are listed here on this slide. And then if you're interested in finding out more about Sky, our AI maths tutor that delivers these one-to-one SATs lessons, you can get in touch by emailing hello@thirdsspacelearning.com or register your interest online at thirdsspacelearning.com, and our team will be happy to arrange a demo session so you can see Sky in action. We do have a few questions. We have run over, so what we'll do is we'll do our best to answer these questions in our follow-up email to you. But thank you so much for joining us today. We know how busy you are, so we really appreciate you taking the time to join us, and good luck with your SATs revision. And we hope that these resources will help your pupils feel confident and prepared in their SATs.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.